What's going on, guys? I'm here today with a Ninja deck profile. This is a deck I took to locals the other week, and it's a pretty good sort of control deck. The whole point of this deck is essentially to try to limit your opponent from making plays. It's a pretty fun deck too, pretty consistent, and yeah, I'm pretty excited to share this with you guys. So let's get right into it. Starting with the main deck. So to start off, I'm running 3 copies of Ninja Grandmaster Hanzo. So this card is really important in the deck. It's pretty much your best normal summon. If you normal summon him, you get to search a ninjutsu art card from your deck, so it can be spell or trap. And that's pretty good. And if he ends up being special summon, you can add a ninja monster from your deck to your hand. Obviously his normal summon effect's a little bit better, but both effects are very good in this deck, so you definitely want to run 3 copies of him. Next up, I run 3 copies of Upstart Golden Ninja. So this card's pretty good. Once per turn, you can send a trap from your hand to the graveyard and special summon a level 4 or lower ninja from your deck. In face-up defense or face-down defense mode, Hanzo is a good search with this card, but this is a very trap-heavy deck. About half of the deck is trap cards, so you always have something to discard for a search. And then, obviously if you have 2 ninjas, you can either go into a link play, an Xyz play, or just swing. Depends on what your board state is. Really just depends, but this card provides a lot of versatility. Next up, I run 3 copies of Yellow Ninja. So this card's pretty good. When he's normal summoned or flip face up, you can special summon a level 4 or lower ninja monster from your hand in attack position or face down defense position. Again, usually it's in attack mode. And you can't special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except ninjas, but that's fine. You're pretty much playing him for the free special summon. He's got 1900 attack points too, so he's definitely not weak by any means. And yeah, I really like having this card at 3, just again for the special summon. Next up, we run 3 copies of Twilight Ninja Jogan. So this card in the Pendulum Zone, ninja monsters pierce, that's about it. But in his regular monster effect, you can reveal a ninjutsu art card from your hand and special summon him. And then if he attacks, he does piercing damage too. But the special summon is really nice. Like I said, half of this deck is traps, and with Hanzo, you can search for a ninjutsu art card pretty easily, and this card's not limited to once per turn. So if you have 2 in your hand, you can special summon both of them, and it's a really nice extender for combos. You can go into link plays pretty easily, and 2000 attack points isn't bad either by any means. So I really like having this card at 3. That's it for the ninja monsters in the main deck. For the rest of the monsters, I do run 1 Amorphage Sloth and 2 copies of Goliath. So this card is kind of your win condition in the deck. You bring him out with your ninjutsu art of Super Transformation Trap, which I'll get to in the trap section. And both of them have the same effect where, as long as they're on the field, neither player can special summon from the extra deck except the Morphage monsters. This deck doesn't rely super heavily on the extra deck anyway, so that's okay. This meta is pretty extra deck heavy. You can shut down DPE plays, Dragoon plays, Dagda plays, Hulk plays, so it's a really powerful card. It's essentially a permanent scythe in this deck, which is really, really good, and it's an easy enough. Any of these cards are very easy to bring out. So I was able to, in my locals this past weekend, beat the 60 card based deck just because I went first, brought out Goliath, and they couldn't play, which was really nice because none of those decks really have much in the main deck in terms of high attack points other than Eldritch. So yeah, this card is kind of your win condition in a sense just because you can stop your opponent from playing. Now for hand traps. As far as monsters go, I'm a budget player, so I only have 1 Ash Blossom. Obviously, if you have 3, run 3. But I also run 3 copies of Ghost Ogre. Hand traps are interchangeable depending on whatever you see at your tournaments around you or whatever you have. They're pretty flexible. Now for spell cards. I run 3 copies of the field spell Hidden Village of Ninjutsu Arts. This isn't an amazing card, I'm going to be honest. So I don't run a Terraforming because searching this card isn't super important in the deck. But basically, if a ninja monster is summoned to your side of the field, you can target a ninja monster or a ninjutsu art card in your graveyard, add it to your hand, You can't activate cards or effects with that name for the rest of the turn. And if a ninja monster or ninjutsu art card would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish a ninja monster from your graveyard instead. You can only use each effect once per turn. So it's a nice protection card, but overall it's not super impactful. It's nice to not have your trap cards be destroyed, but it's not the end of the world. There's other protection cards you can run, but this one is obviously searchable, and it kind of just fits the theme of the deck, which I really like. I also run one Reinforcement of the Army. All your ninjas are warrior monsters, so it's a free search, and you can also use it to bait out like an Ash Blossom or something like that. So I like having the Rhoda. And then I run one Called By for obvious reasons. Hand traps can shut down the deck, right? If I normal summon Hanzo and I don't get the search, kind of sucks. If I normal summon Upstart and I don't get the search, kind of sucks. So Called By is pretty important in this deck. And that's it for the spell cards. Going into the traps, I run 3 copies of... Oh, I dropped one. 3 copies of Super Transformation. This is probably the most important trap card in the entire deck. So, and I apologize, I'm a little sick, so my voice isn't fully there. But this is probably the most important trap card in the entire deck. It's how you go into your Morphage cards. So basically, you can activate this card by targeting a ninja monster you control and a face-up monster your opponent controls. Send them both to the graveyard, so it doesn't destroy. It just sends to the graveyard, which is pretty nice. That way DPE can't get around it. Special summon a dragon, dinosaur, or sea serpent monster from your deck whose level is less than or equal to the combined original levels of the sent monsters. When this card leaves the field, banish that monster. So send one from your side of the field, one from your opponent's side of the field. This can shut down combos, and it's just overall a very effective card. Again, you're going into your Morphage, Goliath, or Sloth, depending on the board state. So it's a very powerful card. You definitely want to have this at 3, just in case. Next up, I run 3 copies of the ninjutsu art of Shadow Ceiling. So this is another pretty powerful card. You contribute a ninja monster and target a monster your opponent controls, banish it, and while this card's banished, the monster zone cannot be used. If this card leaves the field, return the banished monster. So it's a good card, just again, if your opponent has a pretty powerful board state, this card really helps. I run a lot of effect negate traps as well, so if you're able to somehow negate DPE's effect, which is kind of uncommon just because he can chain, but if you happen to be able to get around like a DPE or even a Dragoon or just some other powerful card, maybe it's a Baron and they've already used their negates or whatever, this is a really powerful card just to get around that, and it clogs up a monster zone, which is really nice. And again, searchable by Hanzo. Next, I run 1 copy of Armor Ninjutsu Art of Rust Mist. So this card isn't super important, but I do like having it at 1. When a monster is special summoned to your opponent's side of the field while you control a ninja monster, half the attack of that special summoned monster. So, again, it's a really powerful card. If your opponent's playing something like Eldritch, or I ran into Necroz at the locals, neither of those decks really go into the extra deck at all, so your Morphage cards are essentially useless. Having this card is a nice buff for it, some protection, and again, just being able to weaken your opponent's board state is all that this deck is about. Next, I run 3 copies of Crackdown. So this is just a nice way to take control of a monster your opponent has. Weakens their board. You can use that monster for Xyz or Link plays if you want to, or you can just kind of keep it away from your opponent. Either way, pretty powerful card, and like I said, with the traps, you can either use them with Upstart or play them, so it kind of just depends to you. I run 3 copies of Lost Wind next. So this is a really good card. Target a face-up special summon monster on the field, negate its effects and half its original attack. And if a monster is special summoned to your opponent from your opponent's extra deck while this card's in the graveyard, you can set it but banish it when it leaves the field. So you essentially have 6 copies of a effect negate half attack combo thing. It's a very powerful card. And again, it goes nice if your opponent has cards that maybe aren't affected by card effects or whatever. Then you're kind of out of luck, but it's pretty uncommon. Obviously, it's a nice chain to DPE because you can force them to use their effect on summon, so they don't actually get to keep the card around, which is nice. And like I said, in my locals, I run into DPE a lot, so having this is pretty nice. Going up against other cards, it's useful too, just in case you need to negate effects to go into your super transformation. It has a lot of utility in the deck, pretty much. I also run 3 imperms and 1 D-barrier. So again, this is just more protection, stops your opponent from playing. D-barrier came in really handy against the Necros matchup because I got a free turn pretty much. He couldn't ritual summon. So all these cards have their utility. Obviously, you can side in whatever you want to or change up whatever you want to, but I'm a pretty budget player, so I'm playing with the cards that I have. So that's it for the main deck. Going into the extra deck now, I run 2 copies of the Link Ninja Grandmaster Saizo. So this is a really good card. All you need is 2 ninja monsters. It's got 2,000 attack points. During your main phase, you can set a ninjutsu art spell or trap directly from your deck, which is very powerful. And then while this card points to another monster, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects or attacks, which is pretty nice. Gives it a little bit of protection there. And again, just really being able to set the ninjutsu art card. You can go into Rust Mist, you can go into Super Transformation, you can go into Shadow Sealing, any of those cards. In theory, you could go into your field spell, but again, it's not that great of a card. But there's a lot of versatile plays you can make with this card. It's pretty powerful. Unfortunately, it is weak to Ash, I believe. I didn't run into that interaction, but I'm pretty sure it is. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty powerful card. Having 2 of it's pretty good. I also run 1 copy of the Ferocious Flame Swordsman. I didn't really go into this card at all. It's sort of just in case you want to go for game. He buffs all warrior monsters by 500 attack points, and if he's destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, you can target a non-link warrior in your graveyard, special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. Not a terrible card. I kind of just have this in here. If I have a really strong board state, I can go up 500 attack points. Yeah, it's nice for a special summon. There's a lot of variety you can do with this card, but it's optional. You don't necessarily have to play this card. I also run 1 Ra 10, the Heavenly General. So this needs 2 monsters with the same type. It's a warrior monster. Once returning the standby phase, target a face-up monster this card points to. Special summon a level 4 or lower monster of the same type as that monster from your hand to a zone this card points to. And at the start of the battle phase, you can target a card your opponent controls to destroy it. So again, pretty powerful card. You get the special summon out of his effect during the standby phase. You can pop a card your opponent controls. I think I went into this card 1 time. It's good, but situational for sure. Now I run the Nightmare cards. I run a Phoenix, a Unicorn, and a Cerberus. These are just good link cards. They have good effect. You can discard 1, draw 1 with them as well. So these are optional, but I like if I'm running a link deck, I usually always put these 3 cards in just for their effects. They're generic. They're easy to go into, so I like having them just in case. I run 1 Goki the Power Load Ogre and 1 Boral Guard Dragon as well. So these are sort of like the big beaters in the deck. The ninja monsters themselves don't have super high attack points, but going into these cards is always sort of nice. They have high attack points. Goki the Power Load Ogre can get stronger, and Boral Guard Dragon has the effect where once per turn, send a card from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard, special summon from either graveyard 1 monster that was destroyed and sent there this turn, but negate its effects. And then you can also, once per turn, target a monster on the field, change to face-up defense mode. Your opponent cannot have cards or effects to negate this effect's activation. So the second effect's not great, but I like the first effect for the special summon. You run a lot of spell and trap cards, so you almost always have something to send if you need to. And again, 3,000 attack points, pretty easy to bring out, so that's why I run those. That's it for the Link monsters. For Xyz monsters, I run 1 Blade Armor Ninja. It takes 2 level 4 warriors, detach material, and have a ninja monster attack twice. So if you're going for like an OTK or just a really strong turn, this card is nice to go into just for the second attack. I run 1 Kestel, the Skyblaster Musketeer. It's a generic rank 4, and you can pop a card on the field, so I like having this card as an option. I run 1 Abyss Dweller. I like this card in the deck. It really fits the theme. If you can go into an Abyss Dweller and then go into Goliath, you can essentially shut your opponent out of their graveyard and their extra deck, which can really hit almost every deck in the format. Pretty much. So, like, it's having this card and, like, an Amorphage Goliath, for example, can be very powerful. Obviously, you have to go into this card before Goliath, otherwise you couldn't bring it out, but if you have the option to, like, I really like having this card in the deck. Next up, I run 1 Utopia, a Utopia Prime, and a Lightning. Utopia is really easy to go into. They all have pretty decent effects. So Utopia Prime is a board wipe, and Utopia Lightning can buff himself up to 5,000 attack points. So again, generic rank 4 to go into. If you need the extra firepower, you have Lightning. So yeah, that's it for the extra deck. Yeah, obviously you can change things around as you see fit. I would definitely recommend, though, keeping the Sizos, keeping the Abyss Dweller, and I really do like having the Utopia package in here as well. But yeah, that's it for the extra deck. Side deck, I have one here, but this is the one I played, but obviously you can change it how you see fit, and most of it's just hand traps. So like, I run 3 copies of Veiler, 1 Ghost Bell, 1 Lancia, and 1 DD Crow. So DD Crow, Lancia, and Ghost Bell are really nice to stop graveyard effects. You could swap Crow for another Lancia if you wanted to, but that's not like the end of the world, I don't think. The Veilers are nice for on-field effects. And if your opponent does have a lot of on-field effects, you could switch these out for like your Ghost Bells or not Ghost Bells, Ghost Ogres, sorry. But yeah, so these are like my on-field and graveyard stoppers. I also run 1 Simorg of Darkness, just for his effect where when a spell or trap is activated, you contribute a winged beast monster and negate the activation and destroy it. This card is treated as a win card, so it's free negate. Simorg of Darkness is really nice for the Eldritch matchup. It prevents your opponent from setting cards, so all of their back row is essentially gone unless they can get over this card, which is really nice, because this deck kind of does not perform well against Eldritch because they don't go into their extra deck at all. I also run a Cosmic Cyclone, Harvey's Feather Duster, Twin Twisters, and Regeki, so this is just more for board control. Again, against the Eldritch matchup, or if your opponent sort of is able to overwhelm the field with monsters, I like really having the option to go on any of these cards. Obviously, Cosmic Cyclone is the best. If you have 3, I would recommend running it, but if not, I think this is a good substitute. Then finally, I run 1 There Can Only Be One. Pretty much all of your monsters in this deck are warrior types, so that's not a big deal. So yeah, I like running this card. I also run 1 Solemn Strike and 1 Solemn Judgment, just as Omni Negate, Judgments and Omni Negate, Solemn Strike, Stop Summons. Both of these effects I think are pretty good. And like I said, everything in this side deck is exchangeable for whatever you sort of see fit. Depends on what you see at your locals, what cards you have, what cards you like playing. There's a lot of variety that can go into this deck. But yeah, that's all I have for this deck profile today. Like I said, it's a very fun deck, pretty consistent overall. I did run into one situation where I just couldn't draw monsters. I kept drawing like Imperms and Lost Winds and like my Ninjutsu art cards, but I couldn't get into a monster, which was really unfortunate, and my Rhoda got hand trapped, so that kind of sucked. But 99% of the time, this deck works well when it's supposed to. It's obviously a really good going first deck just to shut out your opponent, and it's very cheap as well. None of the ninja monsters themselves are particularly expensive, same with the traps. The hand traps and like the Utopia the Lightning and Prime were decently expensive. Borrelguard's a little bit expensive, but like for the most part, this is a very cheap deck. You could probably put it together for like, not counting like the hand traps, probably like $40 tops. So especially if you can get a core, that's always recommended. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment with other decks you want me to build a profile for. And if you guys want, I can also sort of do a combo tutorial video with this deck. It's pretty simple, so it doesn't take super long to learn. And yeah, thanks for watching.